Now we've come to an absolutely beautiful place here in Chatsworth. This is landmark number
14. This was our very first monument. This is what we started the Chatsworth Historical Society to save.
Now, before we talk about this church, which is located here in is this the Chatsworth Cemetery?
This is Oakwood Memorial Park, 22601 Lassen Street, Chatsworth.
Okay, so we're still on Lassen Street, where
Yes.
the olive trees were.
Right.
But before we start talking about the church, I want to talk just a minute about these beautiful hills covered in these beautiful boulders, these rocks, which you see all around Chatsworth.
We had a quarry back up here in the hills, and the stagecoach came down through here, came on the edge of the cemetery and down toward Chatsworth.
Boy, those are beautiful boulders, and they really kind of say Chatsworth, don't they?
I think they do. They're sandstone. And
Sandstone.
there are buildings in Los Angeles still that were made from the stone that came from the quarry here.
Okay, now we're here not to talk about the cemetery and not to talk about the quarry, but to talk about this beautiful, beautiful church.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the history of this church.
It's 100 years old this year. It was started in January 1903. They built it. It was built with community labor, and it was almost a community church, but it came under the jurisdiction of the Methodist Episcopal Church.
And you told me it didn't always used to be here.
No, it wasn't. It was at 10051 Topanga Canyon Boulevard, which is just really not far. We went past it just now.
And why did they have to move it?
Well, the land had been sold. It was part of the big Gray Ranch, and land had been sold, and they were going to tear down the church to build a shopping center. So we stepped in. The Chatsworth Historical Society was started so that we could save it, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it.
But you ended up moving it here.
Right, that's what we did. The Oakwood Memorial Park gave us land to put it on, and it took us 2 years to save up the money to get the money to move it.
And this was back in
1965.
Isn't it interesting that the two places you've taken me to so far today, the olive trees and the church, both of those things you plucked from extinction.
Yes.
You saved them.
Yes, we did. That was our purpose. That's why the Historical Society was created, to
Now
save
you're
those
listening
things.
to all this over here.
Absolutely. So it's just about right.
Introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Father Anthony Rash.
And
Nice to
you
meet you.
are
I'm the pastor.
The
of the parish.
pastor here. What's it like being the pastor at this wonderful old pioneer church? Do you have the sense of history when you're here?
Most certainly. And many people have come and said that their grandchildren, their ancestors were baptized here, married here, whatever the case might be, usually when it was down on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. And there are many people who choose to be buried around here because they were associated with the church one way or the other.
Some very famous people connected with this pioneer church.
Yes, that's true. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and their family.
Now, how did that come about?
Well, they lived in Chatsworth, and they used to go to the church when it was on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. And when we were going to move the church, we called them, talked to them. We went up and asked Dale about it. And by that time, their one daughter had been killed, and Debbie. And so she said, I've been thinking what I would do with the money that was left in Debbie's bank account. So she gave us $1,000 to move the church. They were also our patrons when we first started. It was really nice for us. They were wonderful people and lived here. And Roy came for our 90th anniversary of the church, but now it's 100, so we have something big to celebrate.
Were you here when Roy showed up?
Yes, sir. And it was a pleasure to meet him. And he was shorter than I thought he might be, but he wasn't on horseback. What can I say?
But I mean, he really was involved with the church.
Oh,
he
yes.
and Dale both.
Oh, yes, they went to church. She played the piano for the nursery and sang in the choir.
And he sat in the back pew.
Really?
Well,
what he
that's
said.
rumor says.
Wow, this is very interesting because they really were connected with Chatsworth history
Yes,
from the
they
very
were.
beginning, weren't
Very
they?
much. They lived here in the 50s, and their ranch was just over the hill there. And there's
Really?
still Dale Court and Trigger Lane over there.
Wait a minute, there's a Trigger Lane in Chatsworth?
Right? You can drive past it on your way to our next stop.
Better be careful, they'll try to make that a historic landmark as well.
We might. to watch us.
Well, it's absolutely. Can we walk over
Sure.
here a little bit more? Look at the way it's all set up here.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's really got a wonderful look to it.
It has. When we moved it up here, it was turned the other way, and the Cemetery Association paid extra money to have it turned this way so it would look so good.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't that nice of them?
It's just beautiful. What style of architecture do you call it?
Well, we like to say New England style, but there isn't any New England style. But we don't have the name of the architect, but I have worked on the idea that maybe Newsom might have. There were two brothers, the Newsom brothers, and they might have designed it.
Does the bell still ring?
The bell rings. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't, you're not going to be bringing the people into church if you ring it, are you?
Well, I'll ring it for that reason.
Wow, that would be great. He's going to ring the bell for us. Wow, it's got a nice look to it. This looks like an old enough building that it wouldn't be easy to move it here.
No, it wasn't. And in order to move it, we were going to have to take off the steeple. But the Department of Water and Power and the telephone company came and took the wires and cut them and put them back up so we could do it without moving them.
Well, there goes the bell, and I'm looking at that whole steeple. It looks a little catty-cornered to me.
It might be.
That gives it more of a historic look, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it's been there a long time.
Well, we've had a great time. We're going to have to go, but your congregation's beginning to file in from around town, so I hope you've got a sermon ready for everybody.
Of course you do.
It's Tuesday, but that's okay.
Well, that's all right. We get an early start. That's it.